Hi everyone, this is Aaron from HH Watch Reviews. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to actually review a watch that I've had for almost a year now in my collection. And the reason I want to do this video today is because I actually sold this watch and it's going to be leaving tomorrow to its new owner. It's the Seiko SPB313 from the Prospects line. So this watch is running on the 6R35 movement, which is automatic with hand winding. It has about 70 hours of power reserve, beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour, 24 joules. So the case is 41 millimeters of diameter, lug to lug of 46.9 millimeters, which is a little bit longer due to the male end links. We're looking at 12.3 millimeters of thickness and 20 millimeter lug width, and the bracelet tapers down to about 18 millimeters. The case is completely brushed. So if you look at the top of the case here, it's brushed. And even the sides, usually we have some polished areas, but this is completely brushed. The bracelet, all the way down to the clasp itself, it's all brushed. There's a little bit of beveled polished sides on the clasp, but the bracelet, the whole design, which is a 5-link style bracelet, is completely brushed. And if you look at the sides of the bracelet, which usually, once again, you put some polished areas to match the side of the case, this is completely brushed. And we do have drilled lug holes for easy strap changes. The crown is at its usual 4 o'clock position, and like other cushion cases, the case becomes part of the crown guards. The date window is at 4:30 position, and this has to do with the new ISO rating requirements where you need to have lume at every marker. And you notice this when you look at the newer Prospects lineup, where you have the lume at the 3 o'clock next to the date window. So I'm glad that Seiko decided to keep a symmetry on these dials and move the date window so you can have the complete markers in every hour. Also, I'm very happy that this Seiko decided to match the date wheel, and you also have the date wheel matched on the black dial versions, which are these two. Now, out of the new reinterpretation models that Seiko released, like the 62 Mass or the Willard, I think this one is the better design out of the three. And it all starts with, first of all, the thickness of the watch. So at 12.3 millimeters, this wears very close to the wrist. It has a sapphire crystal, but it is domed on the inside. So you do get a little bit of the distortion, but you don't get the extra millimeter or so of thickness on the watch. And the portion, the bottom of the case that is polished, it completely disappears when you wear it on the wrist. So really the only part you're seeing is, the entire brush side of the watch. Now, you don't have a lot of Seiko watches, especially in the Prospects line, that is as thin as this watch. So I think the nickname Slim Turtle really fits this watch. And when you wear it on your wrist, you'll notice it right away. The thickness is it's really amazing how it sits on the wrist, very close to the wrist. The other thing I really like about the design is actually the fact that Seiko decided to put markers at every hour, and not just adding an extra lume pip at the 3 o'clock like they did on the Willard or, for example, the 62 Mass. So having the date window at 4:30 gives this entire watch a symmetry, especially when you see the lume at night. You don't see the date window, and every marker is the same size. So really beautiful design. Now, surrounding that beautiful dial is the bezel insert, and I think that going with an aluminum bezel insert was the right choice, especially if you're going to reinterpret an old vintage model that you have. And back then they were aluminum bezel inserts, right? So this one looks absolutely fantastic, and it always has, aluminum has that little bit of a shine, but it doesn't shine as much as ceramic bezel inserts. So really, it gives that vintage look. and it looks very nice, and it's more toolish when it's an aluminum bezel insert, especially with this type of case finishing where you only have brushing on the entire case, and everything you see when you wear the watch is brushed. That look continues on the bracelet and goes all the way down to the clasp. The clasp is something I don't like. It only has 2 holes for micro adjustments. And this is supposed to be a diverse watch. So having only 2 micro adjustment holes, I'm not exactly sure why Seiko decided to do this. I mean, this whole clasp looks like the clasp of the 62 Mass or the Willard, just a little bit thinner and has less micro adjustment holes. So I don't know why they decided to go with that design, especially since this is supposed to be a diver's watch and the clasp itself is a diver's clasp like the other models. So why have 2 micro adjustment holes and then on the other end of the clasp have that Seiko's dive extension that I really hate, always hard to open, and it doesn't even actually look good. So you have a dive extension and then you have a 2 micro adjustment holes. I don't know, sometimes Seiko does things that just don't make any sense. Now I don't like the bracelet too much, and that's specifically the end links. So first of all, it has male end links. So you do have that extra, length that gets added to the lug to lug. And also the integration doesn't seem to be very nice. Like it doesn't actually flow the curvature of the case. And I think they could have done a better job. Maybe just add, instead of having male endlings, have it female endlings. And that could have helped with, wearability for those with smaller wrist size. But yeah, so I think, by now we all know that Seiko are not great at designing bracelets. I mean, the look of the bracelet is great, but again, it increases the lug-to-lug distance. The bezel is 120 clicks, unidirectional. Very grippy, very easy to turn. Actually sounds very nice. And if you look at it from the side, it does have this little bit of a angled look, like it's a slope. The bezel doesn't go straight up, and it actually flows very nicely with the case shape. You have that whole case that is, a little bit rounded. So very nice look and design. And something I noticed as soon as I got the watch is the crystal itself. So obviously the crystal is a sapphire crystal. It has AR coating, but it is actually a blue AR coating. I don't know if I've noticed colored coating in any of the Seiko Prospex line. So it's pretty nice, and especially with the white dial, it actually looks very nice too. But I mean, it's new, and I don't think I've noticed this before. So let me just show you a loom shot, because actually the loom is very nice. And what I was mentioning before about, the symmetry of the dial. So if you can see here, you don't actually see the date window. There's no cutout of a loom at 3 o'clock. So really the entire dial is very symmetrical and looks very nice. Now, if you look at the seconds hand there, we have that traffic light, the little red dot at the end of the seconds hand. This is a very nice design in my opinion, especially on this white dial, because it gives it this little, pop of color. And, at any time, if you look at the dial, you can see quickly, where the seconds hand is. So it makes it even easier to read the time. So back when I ordered this watch, I actually ordered the black dial also at the same time. And upon receiving it, honestly, both looked absolutely amazing. The white dial obviously, has this, huge contrast and easy to read dial. And the black dial actually looks a lot more tool-like, especially with the entire brushing of the case. And, I wasn't exactly sure what to keep, but because I've had a lot of black dial watches in my collection. I decided to sell the black dial and keep the white one. But honestly, both looked absolutely amazing. And, if ever I do add a slim turtle again to the collection, I might actually buy the black dial. But yeah, one thing I did notice on the black dial, the date window, for whatever reason, it was harder to read the date. I mean, this is a very tiny date window, and it was actually harder to read the white text on the black date wheel, compared to this white dial. So I don't know exactly why, but for whatever reason, I had a harder time reading the date. But yeah, so the black dial is also a very good option if you ever do look into buying one of these watches. But one thing you need to know is the black dial does come with the rubber strap and not the bracelet. Now, if you look at the dial itself, the color of it, obviously this is a white dial, but oftentimes, white dials always have this kind of, a little bit of a creamy look, or maybe an off-white look, or maybe a little bit of a champagne. But this watch is really a white dial. And when I say white, it's a stark white. And if you look closely, the hands and the marker outlines, everything is finished in this darker colored chrome, or like instead of being just silver colored, it's a little bit darker. So this makes the indices and the hands pop on that white dial, and it's super easy to read the time. I mean, it really doesn't matter what angle you look at, it's easy to read the time. All right, so let's put it on the wrist. Today I'm wearing my Seiko 2nd Gen Monster, the Shark Tooth dial. This is the SPB313, if I remember correctly. This is a watch that I wore at the birth of both of my sons, so this is never going to leave the collection. And anyways, I absolutely love it anyways, so yeah, this is staying forever in my collection. Yeah. And it's actually the watch I wear when I do work around the house. It's built like a tank, so it's never going to actually, break, in my opinion. So I hope not. So yeah, so I didn't size the bracelet on this. Obviously, like I said, this is leaving tomorrow, and the bracelet, actually, I never wore it. So these are all the links, and I have a 7-inch wrist, right? So yeah, anyways, here it is. This is what it looks like on my wrist. Yeah, if you look at the profile, I mean, this thing wears so thin. Very nice, and especially if you look at the side, right? Like I was mentioning, the bottom portion of the case that is polished, you barely see that. And yeah, it just sits very nicely. And the entire like mass, or like the volume of this case, is like lower down. So it just sits flush and very nicely. And it's absolutely gorgeous. So anyways, this was just a quick video. I wanted to, show off this watch because, like I said, this is leaving my collection tomorrow. So I did want to do a video in the future about this watch anyway. So the timing was perfect. And so yeah, let me know, what do you think of this watch? Do you own one? Do you actually have one of the other colors? Let me know if you like it. What's your experience with it? And in my opinion, if I had to rate this watch, I would probably put it as number one in the design and wearability, compared to, for example, the 62 mass, which would be second place, and then the Willard would be third place, in my opinion. And obviously the rest of the prospects lineup. But yeah, so there's one more actually. The Sumo is one that I really, really like. Even though it's a bigger watch, that thing wears so well on my 7-inch wrist. And I've had many of those, and I might actually add another in the future. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, please click on that like button and share the video with a friend or two, or anyone who's interested in watching watch videos. I also would like to thank everyone who has subscribed to the channel so far. I know a lot of people are watching the videos and are not subscribed to the channel. So please take a moment and subscribe to the channel. That will help the channel grow faster. And also click on that notification bell if you're interested in being notified whenever I upload a new video. So as always, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next one.